continuing on our review of some concerns we have regarding Fulton County Animal Services, our local animal shelter in Atlanta, Georgia. Here's a dog that was badly injured.
In the kennel.
We're in the kennel area, and this dog was injured because one of the community service workers gave treats at the same time, and so the dogs got into a fight. And so we were concerned because obviously these injuries have to be treated, and that's another cost to our facility. And we have here, our facility closes on Saturday and Sunday at 4 o'clock. Other facilities stay open later. But since there's no one in the facility, what happens when our animals come in injured from the street? This animal stayed like this overnight. And then here, we seem to have a breakdown in communication between our adoptions department and our kennel department, which we just reviewed somewhat of the examples. This dog, Dosey, was going to a adoption event. Obviously, she was altered, spayed, and so our vet did that, and it does have a cost. But for some reason, the note wasn't placed on, or something fell through the cracks. And Dosey, despite her adoption status going to the event, was euthanized before the event, although she was ready to go. We also had another issue with this dog named Bandit. There was some confusion because there were two dogs that looked alike. Another dog that looked like him was Seth, and the staff wasn't even sure which dog was put down. That's another example of something that happened in our kennel. And this dog, Jonas, had a rescue group that was interested in saving him. But again, he was put down before they came, even though they had expressed direct interest. So we just became alarmed once we started looking into files. This is a section on foster. And this is an email to our director, Murray Goldwaith. And we let him know that half of the foster files were empty. So when we started to try to create these records to figure out where our animals were, what we found, for example, is this dog, Blade, who's an American Pit Bull Terrier, male, left with this person in foster, supposedly for space. And this was authorized by AB, the initials Antonio Bryant. And he says right here, see Tony, who's the kennel manager. So when we look into Blade's medical history, we find that there's no rabies shot and Blade is not altered. So we became alarmed because we don't know why an unaltered male pit bull would leave the facility without rabies vaccinations. So we started to look into a foster inventory, and we found even more concerning items. Here's a normal foster with an address and a phone number, and this foster, Gabe, went to this person. But here, Blade, as you can see, there's no address, there's no phone number. So Blade remains at large. We don't know where Blade is. And he's our foster animal for Fulton County Animal Services. The person that has Blade has had some issues with the law, so we're very concerned about Blade. And then when we look into the record in the system, you see there's no phone number and no address for the person. So how this was allowed to happen by management is very concerning and very alarming. And when we continue, we have the approval of who authorized this. This is Blade, and he's a very good-looking dog. But we became even more alarmed when what we found was this same person who has Blade, who was allowed to take him out of the facility, was trying to steal dogs from our volunteers, bringing them in as strays, saying he wanted unaltered pits for the kennel that he had. And this is a statement from one of our volunteers that was turned in to the director about the occurrence. And what we have here is the same employee giving free food to breeders. They would come in through the gate and they would bring their cars in, and these were breeders who were receiving free food from our animal shelter. And we became very alarmed with this practice because it was a large amount of food and they weren't, following up on who was keeping the food. But on top of it, these people are actually creating more animals when we have such an overpopulation problem. So we hope that will be discontinued. And then we became more alarmed because we have missing animals. These animals we've written to the director about, our volunteers have inquired to their whereabouts, and we don't know where they are. So when we hear about employees trying to steal dogs and having unaltered pits and having kennels and, giving food to breeders, we became alarmed on where our animals are. We still don't know where they are. And we continued with other scenarios that we have concerns about, one of the things is the rodent infestation. And this is really, to some extent, what brought the rodent infestation. The food was stored outside of the facility, and it's by a wooded area. So it attracted them. But then, to make matters worse, our management in the kennel didn't require that the snacks be stored in plastic boxes or areas that they wouldn't attract more. Our sinks were full of food at night, and we also had food on top of trash cans that weren't covered. So it just brought the rodents from the outside inside the facility, and now we have a clear rodent infestation throughout. These are turds in our laundry baskets that should be sanitary, and our walls are being eaten through at our facility. And our ceiling is infested with turds. We're going to have to clean that to the point that it's falling apart. This is our ceiling at our local shelter. These are other pictures of our ceiling at our local shelter. And as taxpayers, we're going to have to pay for this. And we are concerned because there doesn't seem to be an oversight, whether it's at the facility. This is the facility during open business hours. There's no one on the floor. You know, we want our facility monitored and our animals cared for. This is a worker on his phone, which we saw a lot, even though that's against policy. This is another worker. And we just didn't have anyone to help with these circumstances. There's a supervisor and kind of the demeanor that's allowed. And you see volunteers and some of the vet staff were pretty busy. But the employees follow the same demeanor as the supervisors, and you know that's kind of what we found often, just the same, just what appears to be an unprofessional demeanor. And then the last part, you have to wonder why the management company, what is the management company doing while all of this is happening? Well, to some extent, this is what we found. The management company is coming in and taking animals like Wiener, who's a cute little Dachshund, and Boots, who's a cute little terrier, and these were pulled by Urban Pet Project, and you might wonder what that is. Well, those are employees for Mr. York, who also manages our facility, and they came in and took little dogs like Tim, who's a little Chihuahua, or Betty, who's a little Chihuahua, and they brought them over without consulting anyone. Here's a note. Came after hours, didn't speak to anyone, just pulled whatever they want when really they should fill out paperwork. And again, you have the vet, UPP pulling after vetting. And is there a charge? And you see right here, there is none, which for a rescue, it is a discount at $65, but there should be a charge. And you wonder what happens to these animals next. Well, we actually looked into what happens to these animals next. We went onto the Urban Pet Project website. And what we found, they clearly say they charge adoption fees. And when we went down, even though our animals are vetted, these animals were vetted at our facility, we go down and their fees are $200 for dogs, or for cats, $85. We also found that they were requesting Corunda beds, but we'd like to share that at our facility, our beds for our animals remained in storage. This is a storage at Fulton County from May to October. We don't know if they're on the floor now, but during that period, these were where the beds were stored. And then lastly, we just would like to respectfully ask the county and Mr. Pitts, we get a lot of information on animals in need. All of these people are trying desperately to save all of these animals because they are overpopulated, and we market these animals on the web trying to save them, because we care about them. So we just want our facility to be run in a way that's safe and ethical and that's going to save as many animals as possible. And we really appreciate your time, and we hope that when this upcoming vote happens, you really think about the animals and what's happening to them. If the county is going to give another extension to Barking Hound, this is what we've received. If the county is going to take on these employees as their own, these are the same employees and what they've done. Please consider these factors. Thank you for your time.